Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, agents. I am Mountie Carl, and you are tuned in to a Division Let's Talk. And if you are tuned into today's Let's Talk, it is because of one reason only, and that is the title of today's Let's Talk: Rogues Are Killing the Division. And not in a metaphorical sense, it's in a literal sense. And today, I feel like in the last week, we've reached critical mass. We're in this time between what Massive has planned to resolve the issue, but looking through the Reddit subreddit for the Division, looking through the Ubisoft forums, and even a article that came out from Forbes, it really has become such the main problem for the Division that there needs to be a solution with this, and it needs to come really fast. And I feel like the Underground is going to be a solution for part of that, but it's only going to be for Xbox players. So what's the rest of the majority of people that are playing the Division doing? Because it's really, and you can tell me that it's not rogues, that people are babies, people are whiners, people are crying about it, but it's the majority of people that are doing that. The majority of people are crying about this issue in particular. And a Forbes article was even written about it, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up that article really quickly because we're going to go through it. It was by Paul Tassi. He is a contributor to Forbes magazine, and when Forbes magazine, any magazine, really does a Division article or anything like that, you know that people are going to read it. And he does news and opinions about video games, technology, and the internet from Forbes. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of try and read through this with you and just kind of sum it up, because I think that when we're done with this, we can actually have a calm discussion and kind of propose a few solutions to Massive as to what can be done in the Dark Zone to kind of alleviate this. So let's go ahead, and Paul writes, "I remember when I first heard about the Division's idea for Dark Zone, the lawless area where players hunted high-level enemies, but also each other. The concept seemed interesting but off to me, like someone was inserting an entirely separate game within the framework of a loot shooter, one that seemed designed to punish players possibly even more often than it rewarded them. Over the past few months, I've kept playing the Division, but I haven't kept playing the Dark Zone all that often because I did in fact turn out to be everything I feared. Sometimes fun, but more often than not, a maddening, unrewarding experience no matter which side of the line you were on. I do poke my head in from time to time, and from what I see, things are only getting worse as time goes on. At first, at least, there was some semblance of equal playing field with everyone just starting out, but now, some players are so far ahead of the others in the Dark Zone, it isn't just risky, it's often suicidal." Now, let me stop there and let me just comment on that, because I don't think that that is true. I do believe there was an equal playing field, but I do believe that there is now a divide, and it is the haves and the have-nots, and it's not based on how much people are playing. It's based on luck, because this game is really RNG based, and it's really based on how lucky you get when you get an item and how often you go and get those items. Now, it also is based on how many friends you have, because if you have 4 friends and you go into the Dark Zone and you go around punishing players, well, that's going to also cause this issue to happen. So, even if you're not that geared up, if you have 4 people and you're going into the Dark Zone, it's really a free-for-all fun fest for those 4 people when you come across a solo person or anything like that. And I know that this was made for PvP, and it's in the game, and people are going to cry about it, and it's really, the problem really lies in the fact that it's such a luck-based game. Like, there's no skill whatsoever. You can get, okay, if you're calculating and you're really looking into things, sure, it can be very much in your favor to do that. If you're, but really that lies in a much more strategic thinking. There are going to be those kids that are little a-holes that get the luckiest rolls on their gear, but there are also those people who just happen to enjoy really griefing people, and they kind of take time and they calculate their gear. I have a friend, and I'm the same way. We write down on a piece of paper with the gear that we have, all the stats and stuff, and where we can actually improve it, and we go up to the recalibration station, and we just keep on re-rolling the stuff until we get the stuff that we want. And we keep, if we don't get it, we run out of money, we go into the Dark Zone, or we go farming for the stuff, we sell it all, we get our money back, and we just keep re-rolling the gear until we get the stuff that we need. So that's really where it comes down to, and I'm sure that I can help you calculate this stuff and tell you how to calculate it. And I'm sure that, when you're looking at, because there is a minimum and a maximum number that you're looking for in each different section that is. And so what's happening, I believe, is that as people go on and they play this game, they figure out new ways of calculating their gear. Because for a while there, everybody was kind of into the skill build tanctician thing. But the problem is that everybody figured out that the exotic damage resilience negated the sticky bomb, that it really has destroyed all those people who went back and rolled tanctician builds and stuff like that, because you're no longer at the top of the food chain. And so it's caused a shift, and that there is actually caused a major shift with people who just kind of went the DPS and tank route as opposed to the tanctician. So now you have all these tancticians running around trying to kill people, and they can't, because their builds are no longer useful, because that exotic damage resilience has negated all the sticky bombs, the flamethrowers, the electrocutions, and stuff like that. So you have, and not to mention they have 600,000 DPS, or even my build at 465,000 DPS. I was in the Dark Zone last night, and I took on 3 guys that they just couldn't get me because they were using sticky bombs, and I have 2 pieces of Lone Star, or not Lone Star gear, but the final measure gear, which negates 50% of the damage for exotic damage resilience. And it actually works. I mean, that stuff works, and it's not just some sort of joke that people do. When I get hit with a sticky bomb, it barely takes off half of the first bar, and even that, depends on, that's it full. At full sticky bomb, it barely takes off half of the first bar. So pretty much what has happened is people have realized that toughness is now the leading thing. So if you really want to survive, the first thing you need to do is stop putting anything into DPS, stop putting anything into skill, and start re-rolling everything into stamina. And if you don't have 75% damage mitigation for your armor, you need to start rolling that first, because that is the calculating decider of how much your stamina is actually worth. There's a whole formula that I could tell you, but based on the 75%, if you have 70%, each of those armor points is only worth like 42 points each. If you have 75%, it's worth 50 points each. So you can see how it scales up as you get more, and it's all based on the percentage that you get. And what it really does is once you hit that 75% mark, you start putting that stuff in stamina, and that stamina basically increases the toughness. So if you have 75% so I have 465,000 toughness, and I have 75%, which means that I have 150,000 hit points. And with the 50% damage resilience, it basically means that you're not going to kill me at all with a sticky bomb. You're not even going to get close. You might even get close with a shock turret, but I'm probably going to move around the shock turret. The second thing you need to know is that you need to play this game like Dark Souls 3 or Dark Souls or whatever it is, by rolling around, because most people have terrible aim. I mean, the console is horrible at aiming, and people just can't aim down the sights. And you can roll around on the ground, and people will try and shoot you, but pretty much it gives you enough time to just keep rehealing yourself, using your heals, rehealing, shoot your shock turret, and do all that stuff, and that kind of negates the rogue. But this isn't about how to combat rogues, which I probably should write something up, but I need to go through and really do a nice video so you can understand it and go through it. But really what it is that there's these rogues out there, and even the ones who aren't out there just being horrible people, those people, sure, they ruin the experience of the Dark Zone, but really the whole rogue thing is really what's doing it. And let me go back to the article. And Paul writes again, I've been putting off talking about the Dark Zone for a while, but as patch 1.3 approaches, along with 2 new DLCs later this year, it feels like it's time to say this. Dark Zone is a failed experiment. I believe Andrew Keener coined that the most. He failed at controlling the Dark Zone. Anyways, it's a poor endgame activity, and unless focus is shifted away from it, the Division will not be an attractive game in the long term for anyone other than a niche group of players, and those players are the a-holes that like to go rogue. And this is the disclaimer. That wasn't in there. I added that in there as a little opinion fact. And so he goes on to write, this is the disclaimer I will make up front. I'm not saying that Dark Zone is never fun. I'm saying I never had fun in the Dark Zone. There is always good stories about the tense extraction of the perfect weapon you found, or the time you were able to 1v4 some idiot rogues, and yet these are anecdotes. And the wider trend is that this is deeply unattractive activity to normal players. The casual players just aren't doing this. And let me just kind of divert, because I had this epiphany today, and what it is that the main issue here is that even though it's luck-based, in the Dark Zone right now is the gatekeeper of getting good gear. And if the rogues are in there and they're killing you before you can get your gear out, you're never going to catch up. And that's the part that really puts this into perspective, because and it really, makes it so that you can't get the good gear. And really what that 201 Dark Zone should be is the Dark Zone where everybody's on an even level. There shouldn't be, some way with just the killer roll on their gun. And that's why gear score is such a misnomer and a myth of how to judge people's ability to kind of survive. I've seen some really horrible rolls with 201. I'm at 228, and I finally just got my gear in order. And even before that, I was just getting absolutely destroyed. If you watch some of my videos, you can see I get absolutely destroyed in the Dark Zone. I still have fun, but I had a friend last night. He quit the game. He said, I quit because he couldn't even make it out of the Dark Zone, because he was playing with a group of people, and he was coming into my group, and he went to go log in, and he was at a checkpoint in the Dark Zone. And what happened is he tried to leave, and rogues just killed him. And it's a horrible fact of the matter. And I said, hold on. And I went in and I got him. I chased down the rogues that killed him, and I killed them. And then I went rogue. Well, actually, they ran off their timer, and I just simply didn't care. They were doing jumping jacks as I plowed into them and destroyed them, which is very, very fulfilling, because, in all honesty, in one of the solutions I'm going to propose, that this would never occur, because I think that they need to bring back the superior loss of XP. I mean, if you're level 99 and you die rogue, you need to go back down to like level 95. There needs to be a severe loss of XP in the Dark Zone to make people really think about whether or not it is practical for people to go rogue. And even this solution isn't really a solution, because then, you're just going to see people of groups of 4 just kind of team up and go into the Dark Zone. Now, there's other ways to combat it. You can get a pug group, but even then, you get these a-holes in the pug groups who are, they just kick you out of the group once you get good loot, and then they steal it from you. They kill you and they steal it from you. But let's just go ahead and go back to the article. The surface problems of the Dark Zone are easy to identify. Simply put, in an RPG about gaining XP, currency, and loot, it is not going to be enjoyable to play an activity where you actually lose XP, currency, and loot. Yes, the penalties have been reduced over time, but this is still a mode where you can actively make zero progress in a play session, or even lose progress if you've had a bad day and run into the wrong crowd, though through no fault of your own. Similarly, a core problem with the Dark Zone is that the ultimate goal is to become the best griefing team on the server, and everything about the mode is designed to frustrate and annoy players on both sides of the rogue system. For players that just want to peacefully farm, they can be attacked and dismantled by rogues at any time. For rogues that want to have fun PvP combat, they're often engaging people that don't really want to fight at all. For rogues and normal players that like both farming and fighting, there's never any remote guarantee of balance, as firefights range from 30-minute slogs to 6-second wipeouts. There's no consistency at all. This is why almost all games have separate PvP and PvE endgame activities. The Dark Zone was an interesting experiment to try and throw them all into one big pot, but it just doesn't plain work. We'll talk about the PvE, and PvP is probably a larger problem. This is a game that simply does not have any real PvP component to it. While you can attack other players, again, you have no idea what you're getting into. You can end up murdering noobs who are trying to flee for their lives, or you can run into a brick wall and super geared players who turn the tables on you. These are not minor power disparities. Running into a 99 plus level DZ team in max gear is like trying to fight a tank with a slingshot. With no real semblance of balance at all in PvP, it's a never-ending disaster. And that's really where this comes to a head, because it's not the problem of going rogue, it's the problem of balance, and there is zero balance. You're either the car or you're the bug, and you're gonna get squashed one way or the other. Even in other games that blur between PvE and PvP, like the Division's rival Destiny, there are still dedicated PvP modes that stand on their own. There you can carry over your PvE gear, and in some competitive modes, even your power level. But it's all balanced in a way that feels competitive. If you're being stomped, it is not because you're necessarily undergeared in PvP play, it's because the other team is better. But without balanced, dedicated PvP modes in the Division, you almost run into this situation. Now I'm going to stop right there because we're going to run into a time crunch, and I want to kind of throw out a couple solutions before we get to the end. I'll link the Forbes article. You can go ahead and read it, but it really touches on the entire problem of the Dark Zone and of the Division. And I think that 1.3 challenges you with trying to fix this by bringing in the Underground, but it's not going to work for all players. It's just going to work for those people who actually get the Underground. So everybody else is going to either have to wait a month or they're going to be stuck doing their grinding in the Dark Zone. And in order to fix the solution for this, I believe that they need to make a choice. They need to be able to select a Dark Zone, whether it is a PvP Dark Zone or a PvE Dark Zone, or even make it so that you can select to always have Rogue on and not have Rogue off. Because if you always have Rogue on, people are going to chase you down. If you're guaranteed to go Rogue, then you need to be, call it out as soon as you get in there. Now that is a stupid idea, I know, but it's one that will fix this issue, because you will know who your enemies are before they come up to you, because rogues will always have the advantage in this game because they are the ones who come up to you and they have to attack first. If you attack them first, you go rogue. There shouldn't be this go rogue first and murder people and then you're rogue. You really need to have a dividing line. Make it so that when you go in, if your intent is to go rogue, you are rogue for the entire session and you cannot get unrogue. And if you're, and give them credit for all of their kills. Get XP for all your kills, regardless. Like as soon as you kill an agent, you get XP. Your goal is to go rogue. You get XP. You get their loot. And if that's your point of going into the Dark Zone, then that should be called out. If you're a good guy and you don't want to go rogue, then you go into the Dark Zone and you say, hey, I don't want to go rogue, and you can't attack other players but unless they're rogues. So there needs to be a dividing line and there needs to be some sort of balance to this game. And that's really where this comes down to. And I think my solution of having separate areas where people who just want the challenge of being in the Dark Zone's already a challenge. You can die all the time in the Dark Zone without people coming up and murdering you. I mean, it's a challenge already. So why not just make it so that there's a PvE Dark Zone and a PvP Dark Zone? People that want a PvP, go to the PvP Dark Zone, and at least that will give you some sort of balance. That'll give you an idea as to whether or not you can stand on your own or do that. Because the problem is that most of the people, these PvP Dark Zones are only going to be filled with 4 people who are trying to go rogue. And that's it. That's the only people that are going to be in there. And that's nice because it segregates the a-holes from the people who are just trying to farm, like this article says. Anyways, I'm running up against 18 minutes and I want to try and get out of here. So I want to leave a little bit of time so that you can process this and leave a comment down below as to what you feel like the solution is for this. Because there's not a gear solution. There's not a loot solution. It's got to be a conscious decision on Massive's part to fix this. I do believe that the Underground is going to fix this because those people who don't like the Dark Zone have another alternative. You can go into these random dungeons that never repeat and do your farming in there. And you can have fun and be with your friends, and you don't have to worry about these rogues that are in the Dark Zone. I believe that you're going to see a huge drop in Dark Zone participation when Underground comes out, at least on the Xbox in August when it comes out on the PS4. You're going to see only the most geared, the highest geared people in the Dark Zone, mostly because all the Underground stuff is going to, you're going to want that loot from the Underground, and it's going to take the shift away from the Dark Zone. And I do believe that if Underground is going to fix it, this is the fix that needs to be. And I do believe that they need to make it so that there is a solution for everybody, not just people who want to pay to avoid the Dark Zone, because that's basically what you're saying to the people. If you don't like the Dark Zone, buy the DLC and you can get it. Anyways, that's been my time, and I'll leave you with that final thought. If you want to be out of the Dark Zone, pay to be out of the Dark Zone and get Underground. That's really what it is. I'm not even an Ubisoft representative, but I'm going to tell you that if you don't want to do the Dark Zone anymore, buy the DLC, get Underground, and never do the Dark Zone again. That is the solution. And once you get your awesome gear and your 4 sets and all that stuff, you can go back into the Dark Zone and murder people just like everybody else. Anyways, I'm Mounty Carl. Thank you so much for watching this. If you've enjoyed this and you found it informative, please leave a like. This is probably going to be our last discussion on Rogue. Tomorrow we will try and look into toughness and balance, and I will also help you with your Rogue problems and trying to help you solve for X if it is in your vocabulary. I apologize for the background noise. My son is very much playing a new game and enjoying himself, so please bear with me as that goes. I'll try to cover that up with music or something like that. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. We will see you tomorrow for another Let's Talk. And if you have any ideas for a Let's Talk that you want me to cover, feel free to leave it down in the comment section. I read the comment section all the time and I try to respond to people, especially if you see this video go up and you've watched it. Leave a comment, and I usually comment within a few seconds of this video going up because I'm still watching the feed. Anyways, thank you again for watching this, and we will catch you next time. Agent out.